My name is Dr. Angie Applegate, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction in Coppell ISD. And I'm going to be reviewing our district improvement plan that we have for the 2018-19 school year and kind of working through the process of how this was developed, as well as highlighting each of the goal areas and the strategies that will be implemented as we go through this year. As we're going through this document, I want you to remember that this is a very fluid document, so there can be changes that are made as needed or tweaks or adjustments within some of the different strategies as we're going through, as well as this is one of those pieces where you could have pieces of this plan that also extend into next year's school plan or even the future year based on the need or the depth of which the goals were going to take place. So as we're going through, I'm going to scroll through and highlight first of all, we have our mission statement. That is the new mission statement that was developed for CISD, as well as the core values that were a part of our strategic design work that many of you are already familiar with. Next, we have our pieces of our table of contents, and this is going to take you exactly to the different pages that will highlight each of these areas. When developing a district improvement plan, you have to go through a comprehensive needs assessment. So this data was data that we received not only through our strategic design process, but also from feedback from our DEIC committee, which is our district committee that is that has educators, administrators, as well as community members and parents that are a part of that work throughout the year with the district on hearing different presentations as well as giving feedback, as well as there has been input from our principals, assistant principals, as well as our other departments all throughout the district, including but not limited to our curriculum department, our business office, our technology department, as well as administrative services. So as you will see, going through this, during the needs assessment, there are 4 core areas that a district improvement plan is looking at. We are looking at the demographics, student academic achievement, district processes and programs, as well as perceptions. This varies a little from what district improvement plans were required in the state of Texas before, because they had the certain elements of No Child Left Behind, which had a higher number of elements, 10 to 12, that actually had to be met within the DIP. So now they have condensed that somewhat for districts, so that way we have these 4 categories, and we'll go into those a little more in depth as we're going through the presentation. Next, you will see the comprehensive needs assessment data documentation. This is going to be highlighting some of those areas of pieces of data that we looked at as a district in order to start forming our goals, looking at our problem statements, as well as looking at those strategies. So these overarching goals that you're going to see right here, goals 1 through 4, each of these goals, and I'm not going to read them aloud to you, you can read as we go, but these are going into depth as far as our overall district goals, as well as each of these will be through the campus improvement plan process. You will see these goals repeated within that. Moving on through our plan, we will start to see the different pieces of the comprehensive needs assessment. The first area is demographics, and we worked with not only our Director of Research and Assessment and Accountability, as well as Jana Stephanie, who is in charge of data and research for our district, to help pull some of these numbers and collectively looking at these different elements of our demographics. So you will be able to scroll through and read through the many pieces right there that are highlighted. And when you think demographics, it's not just ethnicity that we're talking about, it's also some of our various programs that we have, as well as looking at our educator status as far as some of the demographics within that. The next piece that you'll see within the campus needs assessment, you'll have a strengths area. And so here are just some of the demographics of strengths within our district. And then this is a key element of which our format has changed somewhat from where our district improvement plans have looked in the past. For each of these areas in the campus needs assessment, there are problem statements that we have developed looking at various pieces of our needs within the district. So as we're going through these, you will see that the problem statement is stated here, such as there's a need to enhance communication and engagement for families. We also discussed and went through looking at the actual root cause, or the why, if you want to think of it in that way, as far as why this might be a problem within our district. Because while we do have communication that's happening in our district and we have many families that are engaged, there could possibly be And we have found that there are, within some of the data collected, there could be barriers that exist within the current system with communication and engagement opportunities. So as we're going through each of these problem statements, know that while we know that there are some strengths within our system in these areas, we can see that there is improvement that would be needed, hence the need for these particular problem statements to attach in our district improvement plan. As we look at problem statement number 2, once again, there's a need for additional professional learning for staff members to eliminate potential bias, and looking at a root cause. Barriers exist within our educational system due to lack or empathy of understanding. And when you're thinking about empathy, once again, that is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes as far as different perspective and looking at different ways that we're actually looking at our whole system. Not only when we're thinking about demographics, once again, as far as ethnicity, but also looking at if we do have specialized programs or we have people that are moving in from around the world, it's that total understanding that we're all working together as a community of learners. And then problem statement number 3, once again, focusing on the relationships and having that strong positive relationships for all learners. We know through our strategic design process that there were some barriers that are existing where relationships may not have been established and sustained with all of our learners. So we're really trying to target that as another potential area of focus. Moving on now into our next comprehensive needs assessment area, we're looking at student academic achievement. And once again, we worked with a variety of resources and individuals throughout our district in order to pull this data for you. And so this is looking at your district student academic achievement and more specifically STAR. And as you'll see, the state has 4 performance labels for learners who take a STAR assessment, and you can look through the different pieces right there if you're not as familiar with that. And then once again, the following data right here is going to show you some different percentages that you can see within COPHEL. And through each of these, we did a little bit more of a long range look. And so within the time frame, I actually took some of the data from 2015 all the way up to 2018. So that way you could look at the different data and how it was reflected for each of our learner groups. As you're going through those different pieces, I'll continue scrolling down. And once again, here are some charts just so you can see some of the passing rates that were there included within the all students category, as well as some of our specific areas that we do have a focus on when we're looking at some of our growth for our data, which would be our economically disadvantaged, looking at our special education data, as well as looking at our limited English proficient data. The next piece, once again, is looking at our student academic achievement strengths that we have within the district. Once again, this is not all of the different strengths, but it is a list of some of the different highlights that we have within our district. And then the next area is going to be looking at our problem statements once again in identifying student academic achievement needs. Now you'll notice that there are several problem statements in this area because the large consistency of the district improvement plan once again is how is it going to impact within the goals and strategies that we have overall academic achievement for all of our learners. So I'm not going to read through these word for word once again, but I'll kind of talk through the pieces. The first problem statement is really trying to look at some of our high quality tier 1 instruction that we have that is happening within those interventions, as well as just good practices that we have with our teaching. And we know that there can have a root cause right there once again of lack of knowledge or understanding of some of these evidence-based learning strategies and targeted interventions. So when we're looking at that problem, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the strategies that we're going to implement across the district. Looking at problem 2, definitely looking at the specific reading and writing skills. And once again, this could be one of the root causes is looking at lack of alignment across the district with those reading and writing skills that are focusing on that early intervention and identification of needs. This is one of those areas too that we chose specifically for reading and writing because we know that those 2 areas impact all of the other content areas that you would have for learning. Looking at problem statement 3, this is looking at CTE endorsements and enrichment opportunities, as well as looking at those stronger ties for career life readiness and certifications that may be developed not only in CTE, but also for all of our other learners as they're going through pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So, and even further than 12th grade as well. So when we're looking at that, once again, we're looking at the alignment and sustainability as a possible root cause that we have for the why. We want to make sure that these things are developed in a more streamlined way. Looking at problem statement number 4. This is looking at equitable access of the curriculum to ensure that we are offering those opportunities for all learners. Root cause being possible lack of alignment, once again, within implementation of the district curriculum. Problem 5 is looking at qualitative and quantitative data. As a district, we do look at a lot of quantitative data at times when we're looking at some of those pieces, but also we have limited that at times to certain assessments such as STAR. So we really want to broaden that perspective to look at other assessment pieces that we'll use within our teaching and our learning, but also looking at that qualitative side and how we're showing that evidence of learner growth. Problem statement number 6. Definitely that has come out within our strategic design process is looking at that focus of social emotional skills, and these were 4 areas that we thought tied nicely to within achievement, and that's looking at leadership, grit, perseverance, and self-advocacy, and some of those elements will be defined more so as we're going through the plan. But once again, on the root cause there is that lack of focus necessarily on some of the social, emotional, and well-being of learners. Problem statement number 7 is iPad utilization pre-K through 12. Part of this is to look at that alignment piece that may have had some elements there that were lacking, as well as the new implementation that we have of one-to-one for pre-K through 3rd. And then the final is looking at digital learning, digital citizenship, as well as information literacy, and looking at its impact on that learner achievement that we have. And once again, root cause inconsistencies that may have happened with training, evidence of the effect of technologies on both the academic and social emotional achievement for learners. On the next core area of looking at, once again, our comprehensive needs assessment for the district, we looked at processes and programs that were in place. So you can read over the brief summary that just talks about some of the wonderful things that are happening within COPHEL for some of the different pieces that we have shown many strengths in, once again, looking at some of those elements, and then moving on to our problem statements that we have identified within this particular domain. So here, once again, we have the need to create and maintain systems to support high levels of learning for all. And then once again, it will have the root cause going with that there are some possible barriers existing within our current system that would help with the learning for all. Next problem statement 2 is looking at the need for professional learning decisions that are evidence-based. We had a lot of discussion about how at times there has been a lack of focus on that data collection, not only for learner needs, but also staff needs when decisions are made for professional learning. Then once again, problem statement number 3 is to ensure that there is that alignment with professional learning across the district and our campuses. And you can see the root cause that is aligned with that problem statement. The final area for the 4th area that we did for our comprehensive needs assessment had to do with perceptions. The work that we tied here was gathered a lot from our strategic design efforts. As we have gone through that process, a lot of times you may have perceptions that a district has all these wonderful things going on. We have some wonderful values, but we know on the flip side of that, there are some elements that we definitely need to target as problems and look to see how we can dig a little deeper into what we need to do now since we have all of that data and information. So once again, I've highlighted here just kind of some pieces from the strategic design work that was done, as well as the different levels of values that we have chosen as a district with all the feedback and that were developed, as well as looking at the perception strengths that we have within our district. Once again, that we have those values there, also the high focus on academics and expectations and different pieces within that. So because of that, here are some of the problem statements that we have identified just for the perceptions area as well. I am definitely bringing out that social emotional wellness of learners has been one of the pieces within that came out within strategic design work as well, that we do have a large wonderful focus on academic learning, but we really want to look at that whole child to make sure that we're helping all of our learners. The next piece right here is the increase and align processes and procedures that are happening to continue looking at safety, as well as making sure that we are inclusive with all of our practices that we have within the district. And then the third problem statement here is looking at the additional measures of learner success, which may sound familiar as that was one of those pieces once again within strategic design. And then that goes back to also looking at those multiple measures of data in order to show evidence of learner growth. Now, as we're moving on, once again, we're looking at the comprehensive needs assessment data documentation. These specific areas were some of the focus points that we looked at when we were going through and collecting all of the evidence to be able to say, hey, these are the reasons why. We looked at some of the problem statements as well as looking at those strengths that we have and also areas of need. So you can scroll through and look to some of the different pieces of data that were collected and examined during this process. And once again, remember, this process was not something that just happened within the last couple of months. This is something that our DEIC committee worked with, as well as they had many presentations that were given on some of these specific areas of need. All right, as we're moving now into our goals, remember we have the 4 overarching goals that were a part of our district improvement plan. As you will see here, goal number 1 is that personal growth and experiences, and it tells you we as CISD will achieve our full potential by learning at high levels and taking ownership of learning. So as we're going through our plan, what you're going to see is you're going to see a performance objective that is linked to the overarching goal. So you can think of this as somewhat of a sub-goal right here that we have. So as you can see, it's targeted, really looking at that high quality tier 1 instruction. Now there's also going to be an evaluation data source that you're going to see with each of these goals. And this evaluation data source is how we're going to look at what we're measuring in order to ensure that this overarching goal and this performance objective is targeted throughout the year. So as you can see, we have the STAR data, looking at RTI data, response to intervention, and then looking at beginning, middle, and end of the year district universal screener data that we have collected. You'll also notice a place where there's a summative evaluation 1 right here. At the end of the year, which you'll see summative in June, down here as a part of our form, this will be completed by our people who are monitoring that you'll see throughout the plan, as well as our DEIC committee will come back together to go through this not only throughout the year, but really looking at that summative data too right before we hit the end of the school year in order for us to wrap up these pieces as we're going through June. So as you're going through this different piece now, what you're going to see is you're going to have strategies. So once again, here's your goal. Performance objective right here is kind of your sub goal. And then you're looking here, you're going to have, for this particular performance objective, we have 3 strategies. Make sure that I'm right. There we go. We have 3 strategies that we're going to target looking at that tier 1 instruction. So within the strategy, you're going to be able to see that. You're going to see who is going to be monitoring throughout the year. Right here, this particular strategy. And then you're also going to see the strategy's expected result or impact. Now these right here are listed. You may see some different resources that are developed. You may see some elements where there was training that was happening that was going to be targeted within there. And then even within this, there may be some greater action plans that are created or other pieces of evidence that people are doing on these specific strategies, but this is just talking about the overall expected result. And once again, the measurement up here of how you evaluate is right here at the top. And I'm breaking this down right now for this one so that way you'll have the process as we're going through the rest of the plan. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to briefly go through, because you can go through and read each of these on your own, but I wanted you to have that understanding as we're going through and looking at the various pieces. Now you'll also notice the little 100% accomplish, the continue to modify, no progress, or discontinue. So as we're going through the year, there will be checkpoints for the district improvement plan where we're working with our DEIC committee, our campus principals and assistant principals, as well as our curriculum department, all of the people that are monitoring each of these different strategies in order to have touch base points to where we're talking about, hey, how are we doing on these strategies? How are we going along? This will also be something that I will be working closely with the school board to ensure that we have good communication going back not only through to our school board, but also throughout the community. Moving on. As you will see here, these are not more performance objectives, but what we have done and what our new system does for us is each of those problem statements. So we had the ones, once again, just as a reminder, we had student academic achievement problem statements from earlier. We had some school processes and program statements, as well as we had some perception statements. What we have done as we were developing and going through each of these different strategies, all of these problem statements tie directly to each of these strategies here. So you're looking at how you're actually having that impact to where you have the strategy, but then you're also having your checkpoint to ensure that those actual problem areas are being focused on throughout the plan. So that's kind of a big overview right there for you. Now, as we move through the plan, we're going to be able to go a little quicker through the different pieces. Now, as you can see, we're still goal 1 here, performance objective 2. This is all about qualitative, quantitative data. Here's our measurements, once again, for our evaluation source that you will have, and you can read those. And then here we have 2 strategies within our plan. And then once again, you can see who's monitoring it, and you can look at the strategy's expected result or impact. Once again, these are problem statements that are linking to those specific strategies. The next piece, still tied underneath goal number 1, is looking at performance objective number 3, and this is all about efficacy and achievement of all learners. So once again, you can look at the strategies. This one's tying to meaningful relationships. You'll notice that there's a lot of people who are going to be monitoring this particular strategy because, as we know, relationships hit so many different areas across our district, and we want to make sure that everyone is having an impact in their particular role of what they're doing. Another piece that you will notice on the monitor piece is at times we may have campus administrators listed, but also at other times we may not have educators listed because that is something that they will be doing, but it will be more so through their campus improvement plan as far as how they're monitoring those pieces, not on the district end. I'll keep going through this. Once again, this is going to be looking at a group of district leaders to collect and analyze data. And you can see the different components once again, and the problem statements that are linked to those strategies. Performance objective number 4, this is looking once again at our STAR TELPAS data and learning walks, looking at some of our supports that we can do for our English learners. Same thing, problem statements that are tied to that specific strategy. Performance objective 5, looking at our federal system safeguards. For those of you that are familiar with our TASE process, the Texas Accountability Intervention System, these are areas where we are working with specific campuses where we have learner groups who are struggling to meet the expectations necessarily on some of our STAR data or other data points that we would have. And so they are very targeted, specific meetings that are had throughout the school year working with schools. Objective number 6 is looking at STAR data, and it's specifically focusing on these learner groups that we have. These are learner groups that we have had concerns with at times within different campuses as far as making sure that we're showing that overall growth and making sure that we have the appropriate interventions as well as keeping that sustainability of learning going for all of them. Once again, there's 2 areas there. Big piece on professional learning is something that you're going to continue seeing throughout, and that not only alignment, but the sustainability. Here are the problem statements that are attached to those areas. And then once again, this is looking at STAR scores for the meets or mastered performance and looking at STAR data for all of our learners. Now, some of these pieces, just so you'll know, for the district improvement plan are included because once again, by the state, we have certain elements that have to be included in our district improvement plan. So that is why the very much intentional focus on the current state system, which is STAR, as far as how we are aligning our different pieces there for data. As we move along now, we're going to goal number 2, and it's looking at authentic contributions right here. And then CISD will demonstrate personal responsibility and integrity by using our unique passions, gifts, and talents as productive members of the global community. So as we're going through this, it will look very similar in the format. So you're going to have pre-K through 12th grade learners. Once again, that career college focus. Here's your evaluation data pieces, and then here are the strategies that are going to be going along with those different pieces. I would like to highlight within here this different data right here we had discussed as within a board training about looking at some survey data from families as far as looking at 6th through 12th grade for courses or certification interest. So I just wanted to highlight that piece right there that we'll be using across the district as well. Moving through this, there are your problem statements, once again, tied to that strategy. This one is looking at multiple opportunities to highlight and showcase evidence of learning. Here are the 2 different strategies that we have targeted, as well as, once again, the expected results. And there are the problem statements that align. Moving along here, we have, once again, exploring tools and strategies that quantitatively and qualitatively measure academic and social emotional growth. The strategies laid out for you, and then the problem statements that are attached. You'll notice that that domain was a little bit shorter than goal number 1, once again, because goal number 1 was very heavy on some of the student academic elements that were falling within. This goal number 3, well-being and mindfulness. We as CISD will learn, engage, and work in a safe, inclusive, and responsive environment. Within this, you're going to see a big focus on social emotional learning, but you're also going to see those safety elements that also need to be included as a part of a district improvement plan, but also that we have been updating to work on some of our protocols as well as safety measures just across the district. So here as we're going through, you'll see curriculum document pieces with social emotional learning, training on cognitive processing, and this is looking at several pieces working with our special education department and intervention services very closely on this particular training for our learners. Moving on, looking again once there's a problem statements. Performance objective number 2 is really looking at digital citizenship, digital safety, and information literacy. And once again, kind of looking at how we're utilizing some of our tools such as Schoology for implementation, as well as looking at a long-range technology committee to start really planning for the future of CISD with technologies. Problem statements that are attached. Performance objective 3 is looking once again at the family's ability to enhance and extend their child's learning. And this is about a translation tool that we're going to be providing that will help with communication in multiple languages, as well as looking at some different opportunities for multimedia connections to enhance learning for all. There's your problem statements attached to that goal. And then number 4, the unconscious bias training that many of you may be familiar with. This is definitely to help all of our stakeholders in eliminating potential bias that may exist within instruction, assessment, and communication. And we're going to continue on with that training. The 5th one right here is looking at structures and strategies to support social emotional well-being. And this is really looking at our behavioral needs that we have and providing those resources for educators as well as administrators in order to help support their campuses. And then also looking once again at a social emotional advisory council, really pulling together some people within the district to have some good discussion about what can be our next steps just to be able to help support all of our learners and look at the whole child. There's your problem statements again. And then this one right here is about the safety procedures and protocols. And so you can notice we're going to be looking again at our standard response protocol, the training that is something that is going to be offered that is called CRAZE, which is our civilian response to active shooter events, as well as looking at our crisis incident management software that you'll be hearing more about through our technology department and through our new director of student and staff services. And then also an increased awareness and focus on mental health. And this is looking once again at the whole child and the social emotional piece of how we are helping with strategies and building up ways for at an early age to help with coping, to help with anxiety, as well as the increasing of the awareness of the employee assistance program for any of our staff that would ever need help with any of struggles within their lives. There's our problem statements again. And then now we're moving on to our final goal 4, which is organizational improvement and strategic design. We as CISD will engage in the continuous improvement process for the betterment of a learning community by utilizing data for planning, evaluation, and performance needs. Now within our performance objectives here, we're remembering that these are system-wide concerns that we may have as far as goals that we have for our district. So we're really trying to target a lot of those different layers within there. So you'll notice at the bottom of these that there are a lot of problem statements that are attached to this, because when it is a system, it will hopefully help to target many of those problem areas. The first one is looking at our professional learning communities and our PLC structure that we have, and that is the cohort working with solution tree that is going to be targeting some of the training specifically for some of our groups that we have across the district. The next piece is looking at those structures in a district-wide professional learning manner. So how we're going to design our professional learning experiences, are they really targeting not only the data that we're seeing for learner needs, but also that we're making sure and getting that educator input so they have the opportunities to not only look at the needs that they have as an educator, but also having choice in their learning. As we are calibrating our professional learning system, once again, looking at Schoology as a repository of how we can house some of those trainings. So not only you have the face-to-face option, but there's also virtual learning opportunities for our educators, as well as looking at some of the pieces that we could have for our community or families. You'll see many problem statements there. The next piece is looking at our comprehensive balanced assessment system. We are going to be implementing Schoology AMP as one of our tools that is a branch off of Schoology, where educators can create their own common formative assessments and you can share them across the campus as well as the district. And there'll be some more training at some point for our school board just to see an overview of this particular tool. But knowing this is something that we have not had the capability to do before, as well as this will allow educators to quickly pull data for our learners in order to give immediate feedback to them on different pieces as well as to families. The next piece right here is looking at how we are supporting academic integrity throughout our district. And you'll notice over here some of the different tools that will be utilized, as well as we will be working closely with some of our secondary campuses where we have seen a greater need for this. We will be working on action plans in order to help support that throughout the school year. And then this piece right here is looking at the local accountability system and or community-based accountability system. So when you're thinking about the local accountability system, this is the piece that you can, as a district, apply to work with the state on some of these pieces that we may want to implement as a district. But also the community-based accountability is really looking at those other ways to measure learning, along with our STAR test that we know is the current system as well that the state is using in order to give feedback for our community and our learners. You'll see that there are many problem statements attached to that, as well as we're going to be looking very closely at our RTI process, which is response to intervention, and then really looking at our professional learning community and seeing how those two are merged together so that people's understanding are getting to the point of how we're collecting data and how we're talking about our learning experiences are making everyone in our district more successful. Here you're going to see more training implementation, problem statements. And then this is looking at our current and future systems for communication. And this is really looking at those internal and external communications to help with stakeholder engagement as a whole. Our final area for communication is really looking at those multimedia platforms once again, but it's focused specifically on how we're communicating with all of our stakeholders. So these may be things such as a presentation that is done where it may be a face-to-face piece within the district, but then how could we possibly record that presentation in order to then share that virtually out with the community for those who may not be able to attend, and really starting to collect those resources together to have a true platform for how we're housing that information. Once again, problem statements that would attach to that. And then finally here we are looking once again at our professional learning system, looking at that qualitative and quantitative data, looking at making good decisions when we're having that, as well as having also a repository of professional learning experiences where educators have the opportunity to do a face-to-face or once again be able to attend those various trainings. Problem statements that would attach to that. Now, you've had the opportunity to go through and see all of the pieces of a district improvement plan, which might seem a little overwhelming and might seem like, wow, there are a lot of pieces to that. So what I decided to do for our school board especially is to go through and just highlight the strategies that are with those particular goals, because as you saw, all the measurements, all the different pieces of the comprehensive needs assessment, all of the problem statements were copied within that plan, so you can easily look and align all of those things as you're going through and evaluating throughout the year. However, this will give you kind of a short and simple version of looking at what really strategies are we targeting that are going to be hitting that overarching broad goal. So what I did is I took a document that was very, very lengthy, and it seemed very lengthy, probably for you hearing through all the different pieces, but what you're going to have here are going to be just the overall snapshots of what we're truly targeting throughout the year. So within goal number 1, you see the overarching goal, and these particular strategies, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 strategies that are targeted. And remember, this was all about that learner achievement and how we were focusing on all those different pieces. The next piece right here, we have goal number 2, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specific areas that we are targeting for strategies. Moving on to goal number 3, well-being and mindfulness. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 strategies, once again, for the well-being and mindfulness. And then looking at our organizational improvement and strategic design, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 strategies that are for that. So this piece right here makes it look not quite so overwhelming, but definitely doable within our system. And we are really focusing and targeting on our different areas, but we're not just doing it with one person. We're going to be making sure that all of these pieces are coming together for all of our departments as we work together collaboratively in order to make a difference for our school system, for our kids, and for our community. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be able to go through the district improvement plan for 2018-19, and I look forward to any questions that you may have just about the plan, and I would be happy to meet with you or discuss any of the areas that you would like to go more in depth as well. Thank you again.